Um, and we have the general shape of what he looks like. Um, and I like where this is going. So one of the things I like to do around this time is to do a really quick review of what we've done so far and then talk about things that we like, things that we don't like. By we, I mean me, because I'm the one that's drawing and inking it. I like how dog-like he looks, like that shape. I've seen bulldogs have this positioning, which I think is amazing. Um, I like the general shape of the dragon. So I didn't want to have a dragon that was like just in profile only. It's a 3/4 downward facing angle. Um, and I think that's really cool. He feels like he's seated in reality, especially when I continue adding in the rubble that he's standing on. And I think that it's really, really, really cool. Things I don't like. Okay, so this is going to sound super pedantic and I hate it, but this is where we have to go. Um, I'm very iffy on the wings, and because his head is in 3/4, so 3/4 is like this is head on, looking at the camera. If I turn to the side completely, that's in profile, and everything in between is 3/4. So it can be like just slightly profile, and in any upward, downward position is considered 3/4. Um, 3/4 is considered to be really, really hard to render well because you don't have sort of the simplicity of contour lines that draws the profile, nor do you have the symmetry that draws someone head on. When you're drawing something in 3/4, if something looks weird, it will always look weird. So, like, I knew drawing this guy, his face looked a little weird, and I think it's because of this area, this ridge over his head. And I say that because if we were to uh, dim this down, make a new layer, and we're going to make this in red. We're going to draw a circle. Hold on, let's try that again. And then we're going to draw another circle. And this is going to be kind of the general shape of his head. It's actually almost horse-like. Um, and if we connect the dots like that, and we draw a general shape of the shape of his head, um, one of the things that jumps out at me is this ridge and this ridge don't feel correct. So that's something that this is what I mean by we have to be pretty uh, objective with what's wrong with it. So if I had to uh, draw this guy, I would probably erase this thing, or at the very least, um, move these lines up. So, like, hopefully this makes sense, but we want to have there be a little bit of dimensionality in his ridge bone. And actually, yeah, I think the whole problem is this general shape is just way too flat. We almost need it to go like that. Yeah, but maybe not that pristine. But that's the general is basically like a mohawk that we're rendering. So that's actually kind of close. So we're going to keep this shape, and this actually does mean I need to uh, factor in a bunch of different other issues. So we're going to retrace this again, but I'm actually a lot happier with this general shape. And we also need to add some shapes that kind of give him more three-dimensional scales as opposed to just like a line that goes over his head. And we're not going to worry too much about the uh, so we could actually draw over some of these without worrying too much about it looking out of place. But that's what I meant. And there's other things that we can sort of tool around with. So like these where the horns come out of his head. I'm a little nervous about this area because it kind of is a little too clean. So we can approach this a different couple ways. We can add some more scales building up or out of. So actually, we could treat the horns as if they were initially scales that have then turned into horns. That would be kind of cool. Um, so it's like we have to constantly edit and check how everything looks. And if it doesn't look right, we have to be able to pivot and solve these problems that are kind of self-identifying. So this is if you're not objective enough, it will look fine. And by fine, I mean fine. There's nothing wrong. It's okay. But if you want to push yourself, you have to be pretty tough on all of the edits that I just talked about. And it is sometimes like a little bit more inside baseball, in the weeds. Like, do we really want to go this extreme in our critiques? The answer to me is always absolutely yes. Um, because if you don't, it can go a little too uh, simple, or like, and sometimes it's like things that uh, are fine, but you could push yourself. And I think pushing yourself is one of the best ways to get better as an artist. So, and it could always be like really minor things, and it could be like really like, oh my God, what was I thinking? Um, and sometimes it's always a very subjective thing to be objective. So sometimes you don't want to do any more on this, and I'm I'm right there with you. Uh, but if you really want to get better, being better means being critical, and being critical can be not necessarily being hard on yourself because like I've done that, learn from my misadventures. It's never good to be a jerk to yourself. Uh, However, being objective can mean being really good at identifying problems that you know are there. Um, and if it's not good, start over. This was just a sketchbook, so I don't really care how good it was. So I'm totally just like spitballing here. Oh, but because you're here, I can show you. This is my first painting of 2022, uh, and I liked it. It came out pretty good. It's solid B minus work. And then I also did a couple other portraits. This is the first one that I did that I really like it. I think it came out pretty good. Um, and this is me learning how uh, the workflow, because the workflow is always going to be something that every artist has to come up with on their own. So this one was super messy, and in fact, I'll show you the video of it here because the line art was terrible at the beginning. So you can see me just delete, delete, delete to start that again, and it still wasn't great. So you see me retooling it. So whenever you see me erasing a lot, or if I'm going over the same area over and over and over again, that's me basically spitballing. Um, but I always start off with a line art. I think a line art is incredibly helpful. It is one of those things that For me, it's digital. Why not make a line art to go with it? And the colors. Also, I learned that this captures all of your strokes. So if my cat was in my arms, you may see a sign that says, "Oops, my cat is here. My bad." Um, and this was from a photo. Someone asked if I knew this person because apparently he was handsome enough to be a thirst trap, and I was like, no, I literally you Googled men's face, and this was one of the things that came up. So, uh, if you ever get super bored